Yeah, there's usually lots of shagging.
Right-wing nutcase white nationalist possibly sleeping with Trump.
Just be like, oh, cool, so we're going to do this thing that you all hate. Bye.
If you were to ask pretty much anyone on the street, what's the Lib Dems' main policy, it would probably be they all sit around and work out what stunt Ed can do next.
Welcome to Oh God, What Now? I'm Ros Taylor. On today's show, it's conference season. What really goes on at these strange events and how will they be different this year? Plus, people working in the arts care about Labour, but does Labour care about them? We'll ask whether the government needs to support a sector in which Britain really does lead the world. Let's meet the panel. First up, it's political comedian Matt Green. Hi, Matt.
Hello.
On Sunday, a man seems to have tried to assassinate Donald Trump. This election campaign gets more and more unhinged every day, doesn't it? Earlier on, the ex-president announced, "I hate Taylor Swift," on his socials.
Yeah, don't take on the Swifties. They are fierce. The reaction is immediate.
I know.
Yeah. I mean, I've heard people saying that this is unprecedented. Apparently it's not. Apparently Gerald Ford actually was faced 2 assassination attempts within 17 days back in 1975. 2 women tried to shoot him. One of them nearly got him. So I can't help feeling that Trump is sort of hoping for a third unsuccessful attempt. So
Gerald Ford also famously hated Donny Osmond.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. And it was probably, that was why it happened. It's a bizarre story, this, that the Secret Service saw a rifle in the bushes. They engaged the man. They shot at him. He fled. They found him. He's now been sent to court. He seems like quite an interesting, sort of odd guy. He's being described as a Ukrainian activist, a sort of pro-Ukrainian activist, although he has no military experience, but he has travelled to Kyiv quite a lot, apparently, and is trying to sort of get foreign fighters to come to Ukraine and help. Seems to be sort of an idealist / fantasist rather than someone who actually has any kind of connection with anything that might be useful militarily. But it does, I think, mostly seems quite strange to me that we're living in a world now where there are 2 assassination attempts of the leading contender for the presidency. But I'm pretty sure that by the end of the week, we won't even be thinking about that anymore. Something else would have happened by then. It's the whole campaign has been so bizarre.
Yeah, it has. Next, it's columnist and author Marie Leconte. Hi, Marie.
Hello.
It's one of the most divisive topics there is, but apparently number 10 is going to let a private member's bill on assisted dying go ahead. Some cabinet members are vehemently opposed to this, aren't they?
Yes, including slightly awkwardly the Justice Secretary, Shabana Mahmood, who said that she wouldn't support the bill. So, I mean, I think it is going to be really interesting because the Labour Party is entirely split on the issue, but so are the Conservatives and so are the Lib Dems. I think it's really not a kind of party political issue, and it's not even a kind of like left or right thing either. So, I mean, I suspect that it would not be a whipped vote for any party. No. It's clearly a matter of conscience. And I think it's kind of impossible to predict what will happen because I think over the last few parliaments, several MPs tried to campaign to push a vote and it never quite happened. And yeah, so as a result, A, we have no idea what's really going to happen, but B, also it's such a fresh new parliament that I think it's a really, it's going to be a bit of a mystery box of a vote. And especially, I mean, I feel slightly bad for all the new members of parliament as well. You know, it feels like such a massive, massive issue. I'm even quite confused, to be honest. I don't have a set view on it. So thinking, you know, you've been in parliament, a lawmaker for about 7 months and you have to vote on assisted dying, like feels like such a huge kind of mental and moral burden. So yeah, no, I think it'll definitely be interesting to watch. But also I have absolutely no idea what's going to happen next.
It doesn't feel like something we're ready to debate as a country, really, because France had a massive citizens' assembly kind of exercise a couple of years ago, didn't it, to decide what people thought about this, and then they legislated. We haven't had anything like that.
We haven't, but also I don't know. Like, do we ever have big debates in Britain? Yeah. Like, it's just not really a thing we do. I think in the way that Ireland is quite good at doing that as well. But I think British politics, that doesn't have this great tradition of having like a big national debate. The closest we got to was Brexit, and I think we'll remember how that went. So I don't think we have a press that sets up for it. I don't think we have a kind of political sphere, parliamentary sphere that's set up for it. So yeah, I don't know, because I've seen lots of people saying, "Oh God, you really can't rush to a vote on this because of all the possible issue. This is something we should take time to think about." But my slight counterpoint is, would we do that? Like, even if Keir Starmer were to say, we're going to have a vote in 2 years, do we really trust Britain's kind of politicians and columnists, opinion makers, etc., to really take the topic really seriously and discuss it in depth for 2 years. I don't, maybe I'm being cynical, but
Seeing as they're really arguing at quite some length at the moment about whether or not Starmer's wife should be wearing the clothes she should or not, and some people are very angry about it and some people think it's perfectly normal, I think just introducing assisted dying into that level of debate might be just pushing it.
I think what this country is very good at is saying we need to have a national debate about this.
And never having one.
And no one defining what that means. And people just go, does that mean just some columnists write some columns? Because that's
Well, I mean, Brexit's the perfect example, isn't it? Which always, we knew what we voted for. If you knew what you voted for, if we discussed it in advance, but obviously that never happened.
Indeed. And the voice you've just been hearing is our guest today, actor, writer, and the only comedian to have ever performed at both Labour and Conservative conferences, Alistair Barrie. Welcome back to the podcast.
Thank you for having me.
You've got a show out on ITVX, haven't you?
I have, yes. Woke in Progress, a title chosen specifically to annoy my mother. And it's funny thinking about it now because the show was written for last year's Edinburgh Festival. So it was quite a lot of it was about the sort of the death throes of the Tories and Truss and all. I mean, the show before that was actually demanding the immediate resignation of Boris Johnson, who resigned 3 weeks before the Edinburgh Festival, which ruined everything. But no, that's it's sort of the end of the Tories. And yes, I feel we may have turned a page slightly, but still, please watch the special. I think it's still good.
Excellent. It's on my list. It's party conference season. Many journalists claim to hate the conferences. Most PMs regard them as a tiresome necessity. The TUC and Greens come first, then the Lib Dems, then Labour, and finally the Tories. By that time, it's October, and something called conference cold is endemic. But for activists, they are often the highlight of the year, a chance to hang out with like-minded people, maybe even do more than just hang out, and rub shoulders with the real politicians. It's all changed this year, so what's the vibe going to be? Marie, like me, you've been to a lot of these things. As a journalist, what do you get out of them that you can't find elsewhere?
Existential despair. Actually, no, I get that in my day-to-day life as well. I don't know. I think it's a really good. So I think conferences are really weird because nothing actually really meaningful happens there. So especially with the Conservatives, I think when they're in government, because there's no policy making that happens at a Conservative conference at all. So it's more the kind of nearly American style, like kind of convention thing. Labour, there's like some policy stuff, but to be honest, even if stuff gets decided by the whole number 10 of the leadership can kind of choose to ignore it further down the line if they want to. Lib Dems is a bit more interesting. I think they vote on policies a lot more, but also life is too short to spend an entire day in a hall listening to Lib Dems debate about what they should do. No offence to the Lib Dems listening. But no, so I think what's interesting about conferences is essentially everything else. So like the fringe events are usually like the best thing. They're much better than the speeches in the halls because you kind of get a sense of what the party wants to talk about. And also, so I try and do it every year at least one day. Like there's always going to be kind of like rising star MPs who desperately want to get promoted or, want to run for leader at some point. And they will just do so many fringe events. Like somehow you look at the fringe guide and I remember one year, I think like Chuck O'Muna was speaking in like 8 different panels in a day. And it's like, why? Oh my God. And I tried to follow him and drove myself insane in the process.
Did you say the same thing every time? Was it like doing
quite often.
A gig where you just do the same speech 10 times
quite often
in a row?
as that, and you're just in the corner rocking back and forth going, what am I doing? So I think like capturing the mood as well of the party is really important. Our activists, like are they sad, are they happy? I think last year at Labour was really fun as well because I remember talking to a really long-standing party member who's a friend of mine. I was like, how are you finding conference? He was like, it's really weird. We have so many men in suits now and so few men with really bad beards. Is that what is happening to the Labour movement? And you could tell that meant that Labour was getting closer and closer and closer to government. So I think that the vibe checks, the vibes are really important in politics, especially in British politics. So you do get a really good vibe check. And also even just making contacts. And it's quite a boring thing to say, but you do end up meeting so many people there. So if, 4 months down the line, I'm writing a story and I'm like, oh, actually that MP I met 4 months ago, I can shoot them a text, and because we've met, they're more likely to reply to me. So it's a kind of like weird mix of lots of different things at the same time, but very few of which actually make the headlines in the end, I would say.
But it's great observation. I remember when I was doing them, I generally used to be on the fringe because I wasn't important enough to do the big stories, and there was just fascinating stuff. I remember Alan Duncan addressing the Fawcett Society event at the Conservative conference. and basically telling them not to be too demanding. Say, don't force it. and these women who weren't going to force anything, just going there, yes, Alan, yes, Alan. But there's all kinds of fascinating stuff going on.
Excuse my ignorance, but what is the Fawcett Society?
It is a society that campaigns basically for feminist causes and women's equal pay, all those kinds of things.
Terrible idea of taps in my head, you see. This is the problem I was slightly
wrong Fawcett.
Yes, I can see that.
Yeah, FAWCE.
Apologies to all feminists who are now proving that I'm part of the patriarchy at this point.
Go, it's time to educate yourself.
I feel educated and apologetic.
Often there's a peculiar half-holiday, sort of half-work atmosphere. There may be less so since the conference is mostly abandoned Blackpool and Bournemouth. Tell us about a typical day at conference.
So normally the first day is quite fun because then that's when you really get the holiday feeling, because even all the people, and actually myself included these days, who just could not be bothered going, like there's that thing about you're traveling and then you bump into people immediately, and that's quite fun. And obviously the alcohol is free at a lot of events from about 4 p.m. onwards.
2 p.m. also.
So yeah. Although I will say, I think the trick, having done many conferences now, like do not drink before 7 p.m. is my trick. Like do not have a drink before 7, otherwise you will not survive the 3 days. Especially if you're doing several conferences in a row. So yeah, Sunday is quite fun. Everyone's like, oh, hello, actually they'll be fun. And then, so Monday and Tuesday are the longest days because they're full days. And yeah, so people tend to work incredibly long days, but a kind of mix of going to fringes, having meetings. So it's never actually really doing work, I guess. Like it's a lot of, socializing, breakfast meetings, panels, etc. And then, kind of like lunches and dinners, like work lunches and dinners. And then quite a lot of the parties happen in the evening. How quaint. But no, there are lots of events in the evening, so like organised by the broadcasters, by kind of, think tanks, by lobbyists, etc. So you're kind of expected to stay out till quite late, because that's where also a lot of the socialising happens. And then you sleep for a few hours and you wake up feeling horrible, and then you do it all again. So yeah, by the Wednesday, there's usually, it just feels like a ghost town. And even I would say Tuesday evening, because we were talking about the vibe earlier, like the vibe starts shifting and everyone's just quite on edge and hysterical. And which can be quite fun occasionally, but sometimes just like, what am I doing with my life? Oh my God.
I was dancing with Priti Patel and Nigel Farage. Oh my God.
Again.
It does sound like every festival I've ever been to as well. It's that sort of the first couple of days, and then it begins to kind of fade.
You just really want to go home. You just really, but also because so many people there are not, crucially, like about 22. So yeah, and I think especially lots of people with kids will go to conference and go, "Hey, I can drink. I have a hotel room. I can wake up whenever I want." And then they're
with whoever
"Oh
I
no,
want."
Yes. There's usually lots of shagging going on as well, which is, I think we never found out. Some people shagged in the conference, like main bar toilets at Tory conference, I want to say in like 2018. And everyone could hear them, but no one ever found out who it was. So yeah, if you're listening and you know who it was, please tell us.
Clearly Boris Johnson. In 2018, he was on flying high at that point.
Sometimes the membership want to talk about stuff that the senior politicians don't. Because it's their party conference, so why shouldn't they really? What kind of tensions have you seen on the conference floor?
I was trying to think about that actually reading the script, and it's hard to tell because I think there was definitely one year where I think people got really grumpy about immigration. There was one year where people got really grumpy about, I think it was the Green New Deal. Obviously, we had many years of arguing about Brexit, but again, the truth that the reason why I don't remember this, aside from the fact that I have a terrible memory, is that none of it matters. So it is that weird thing, but again, not unlike a festival where you feel like you're just going to die if you don't see that one band, or, the queue for the bar is too long and it feels like the worst thing in the entire world. Conference is kind of the same, where, on the Tuesday, we're like, oh, there's this motion and it may pass. And, the leadership does not want the motion to pass. And honest to God, 2 weeks later, if you asked anyone at conference, what was that motion about? They'd go like, what motion? So, yeah.
Yeah. Alistair, you've performed at both Labour and Tory conferences, which is even-handed of you, because I know some comedians who wouldn't do both.
Yeah. It's
Like Matt, for example, who's just put his hand in the air.
Matt, yeah, well, no, it's an.
I wouldn't be asked to do both, to be fair.
Well, it was a very odd one. I have told this story before, so apologies to anyone who has heard it. But I did the Labour Party conference as a favour to a friend who couldn't do it at the last minute, and it was a bit more joyful. It was the Midland Hotel, and it was the cast of Corrie were there, and I got there and basically realised it was essentially a corporate gig, which I could die horribly at, and I wasn't looking forward to at all. Eddie Izzard was sat there, and I was like, "Are you going to do it?" And he went, "No, I did it. I died on my arse." I was like, "Oh, great!" And then it proceeded to actually go. Well, Cameron was PM, so it proceeded to go very well. And I was like, "Well, I'll take that. That's it." But I was doing it for free as a sort of, vaguely lefty-leaning person. And then a few months later, my agent got a call saying that I was wanted for a fringe event at the Tory Party conference. And my agent said, he's not really that way inclined. And they'd seen a video of me talking about Thatcher in a less than complimentary way and said they wanted someone they disagreed with. Oh. Which was interesting. So it was. I said, "This sounds ridiculous. Find out what they're offering financially." And they told me, and I said, "Let's build some bridges." So I did. And to make a long story painful, there was actually it was Forest for the right to enjoy smoking tobacco. Which actually, I think we can all agree that the tobacco kind of question's gone. But it was a kind of libertarian argument that I have a certain amount of sympathy for. Anyway, the guy running it was lovely. There was a chap called James Dellingpole on before me who didn't do terribly well.
Oh, God.
And then he tried, because he was dying on his arse, he tried to introduce me and just went, here we have some sort of comedian. Where is he? Left-wing comedian. And sort of booed from the associated. I've never seen more maroon chinos in my life. And so, bless him, the guy running it just got up and just took him and went, "Fuck off." And he got off, and I got up and I said, "I'm sorry." And he introduced me as was agreed, because the introduction is quite important for a comedian. He introduced me as agreed and said, "Oh, he's a Labour Party member." And I wasn't a Labour Party member. And I said, "I'm not," because I got a boo for being a Labour Party member. So I'm not a Labour Party member, but I did play their conference, which got a big boo. And I said, well, you'll be glad to hear that you pay better, which got a big cheer. And then I said, which I think you'll find technically means they've won, which confused them completely. But then, actually, I have to say, I went on to have a fairly pleasant gig. So it was an experience that I enjoyed, even if Matt is now feeling that I'm morally reprehensible.
Do the delegates relish a bit of mockery, or do you try to avoid that?
I think I used pretty much the same material at both. I mean, when I was talking about Cameron at the Labour Party one, I said, "I can't say the joke I've written." And they were like, "Do it." And they loved it. Pretty much did the same thing at the Conservative Party conference. I mean, no one's ever going to be as funny at the Conservative Party conference as Theresa May with a terrible throat struggling through as a friend of ours actually hands her a P45. And then just at that point, the backdrop, the letters started falling. And you go, this is worthy of Buster Keaton at this point. But I think everywhere you go, everyone likes to poke the bear on whatever sort of stage you're at. And, having a go at the leadership. I mean, if you stand up and go, "You're all disgusting, despicable Tories and you make me sick that you could even..." then, of course, ridiculous. But that's not the way to approach anything if you want to get the audience on side.
No, indeed. I think my highlight was watching IDS, Ian Duncan Smith, giving his conference speech when he was party leader. And he said, "The quiet man is back. And he's turning up the volume."
Were you there for that?
Yeah.
I have watched that video so many times.
It was amazing.
It's one of the funniest speeches I've ever seen. Oh, my God.
It's one of those instructions, though, isn't it? It's like when someone said to Theresa May, "It'd be great if you danced onto the stage." And you go, "No, the whole point is she can't dance. Just, oh, God, she's dancing." Same sort of idea. Ian, talk louder. No, don't.
Matt, is it a good thing for the parties to get out of London, which they always do? In England only, I should point out. They never have conferences in Wales and Scotland unless they're having their, national conferences.
Yeah. Of course it's good for them to get out of London. But I do feel like, from the coverage anyway, I've never been to a political conference, but I have been to the Edinburgh Fringe and various festivals, and it feels like what everyone's saying, they're sort of the same thing in many ways. I think you can sort of sense that there is a sort of bit of a conference bubble effect going on. Everything that Marie was saying was really sort of vibing with me in terms of like the Edinburgh Festival, where everything's so important when you're there, and every review counts, and every show that gets people or doesn't get people really matters. And then 2 weeks later, no one can remember any of that. And I think it's the same. It feels like it must be the same there. And when you see the coverage, you realise they could all sort of be in the same place. They all look very similar. The venues all look basically the same. They could have just used the same footage from previous years, apart from they always have those sort of few awkwardly staged photo calls with kind of local volunteers or something. And I feel like, yeah, if they did a bit more of that, if they went out into the community more and did that, that would be useful. But I kind of feel like with all the security and everything at the moment, that feels like it's not that likely to happen.
Yeah, there's always a secure zone.
Yeah, because I was about to say, I think that's the thing I forgot to mention as well. Like, it is such a faff to get in and out of conference. Like, there's so much security if you've never been. So once you're in as well, you just never want to leave. So you're just in this small area protected by police, and you can never go away.
With bad food.
And I bet there are VIP areas within that, aren't there? There must be like areas within areas where.
So I think there's bits, where like only MPs can go and stuff like that. So yeah.
Yeah, you're trapped, basically.
There's also the fact that basically, by its very nature, the people who are attending conference, whether it's Tory, Labour, but they are the members who are, by their very nature, slightly unhinged people who belong to political parties. So they're all kind of different, but kind of hewn from the same bough. And I think the Edinburgh Festival sort of comparison is apt, although obviously next year we can wait for Ed Davey to be abseiling down onto the mound as it starts, just to catch up with his other stunts.
Matt, no one outside the political bubble usually pays much attention to conference, except for the big set-piece speeches. And last year, Keir Starmer had to deal with a protester who threw glitter over him, and I can almost guarantee that very few of us can remember anything about that speech except the fact that he had glitter thrown over him. This year, he's got to strike a balance, really, between his kind of dour realism vibe and firing up the party to get behind him, which he does need to do. What tone do you think he should go for?
I mean, I think he should go on with a glitter cannon. That he's got to do something glittery. It made him look calm, but also sort of fabulous, which I think really worked for him. I think taking off his jacket it helped. It sort of made him look sort of more human. I think it's quite a difficult one. I think if you'd said this back in July when they just won the election, what is his conference speech going to be like? I think people would be like, well, it would just be a sort of he will be doing a victory lap, it will be amazing. But because we've had so much since then, we've had the riots, obviously, and all the winter fuel payments arguments, and also the black hole business and the budget, which is still to come, sort of hovering over everything. I think it feels to me that what people voted for basically was two things. One was to punish the Tories, and the other one was to have some sense of hope and change, some sense that something was going to get better. And I think the punishing the Tories bit they've kind of done. And they've really said, it was all their fault. Everything's going terribly badly wrong, as we all sort of assumed that they would do. But it feels like they haven't really found a way of doing the hope and change bit yet. They've gone so far on the sort of doom and gloom, everything's terrible. And they keep saying this thing of, well, they made us do it, or we didn't have a choice, or we have to, which just feels very silly and weak, and like they're saying, well, there's nothing we can do because our hands have been forced. And the thing is, he's not Obama. He's not someone who's going to be able to sort of turn it round like that with sort of soaring oratory. So he needs to say, I think, in a straightforward and honest way. I think it would possibly help if he said something in the speech about they haven't got it all right to begin with. That that they haven't hit the ground quite as running as they would have hoped to have done. I suspect they're not going to do that because that will be seen as weakness. But I think maybe just a moment of acknowledgement that maybe this hasn't been the most smooth first few weeks of government that could possibly be.
I think the glitter cannon is definitely a better option.
Well, I think what he needs to do is have various glitter cannons throughout the speech where every time he hits a bit which is a bit gloomy and doomy, he said, here's another glitter cannon.
But that's his thing. I mean, you said dour in his delivery, and that's, I think, one of Starmer's problems at the moment is he has just won one of the biggest democratic victories in recent history and he's so miserable the whole time and just standing up and going, I said everything was shit. Well, it's worse. And he really needs to change that record slightly, I feel.
Yeah, if he's capable of it. I'm not sure as well. I think he knows what impression he wants to convey, and he's going to stick to that.
But also in that case, like, they have Angela Rayner, like, and that's usually famously the thing. You get PM and DPM, and they kind of, yin and yang a bit. She's fun. Like, make her do more stuff. Like, I'd be, I'd trust her if she told me good times were coming.
Put her in a DJ box and she could just be raving at the front, and then the glitter cannon.
With the glitter,
It's all happening. It's going to be all right.
Well, I heard today that they made the decision to make Rachel Reeves more prominent during the election campaign because people, they focus grouped some early stuff, and people, when they saw Starmer out, said, "Why has he brought his wife with him?"
Oh, yeah. I read about that. That's amazing, isn't it?
Yeah. Marie, Ed Davey rode in on a jet ski yesterday to Brighton. Obviously, and the mood is said to be buoyant in Lib Dems, and they're celebrating all their new MPs. They're very happy. But this is an odd victory for them because they ran on health and social care, but they won big in places that normally vote Tory. Are they a party of the left, or are they a party of the centre now? Does it even matter yet? Will it start to matter soon?
I don't think that's a question you could ever really have answered about the Lib Dems just at any point. They're somewhere floating around the centre. I mean, famously, Clegg was riding off the back of the Orange Book kind of like movement within the Lib Dems, which is definitely centre-right. If you look at the Orange Book, that's not a kind of left-wing manifesto, like left-wing thing. So no, I think one of the great strengths and weaknesses of the Liberal Democrats is that they're just this insanely broad church. I remember like the first time I went to conference, and genuinely, I think within a day you could meet people at the time who were to the left of Jeremy Corbyn, who was leader at the time, but also meet people who were essentially just like mental right-wing libertarians. And it was like, how? And it was really weird as well at the time because they had so few MPs. And it's like, how can you have like 7.5 MPs and yet occupy the entire political spectrum? Like, how is that a thing you can do? So no, I don't think it massively matters because again, it is a strength because that means they can sort of attack from any angles depending on the issue. They can kind of be slightly amorphous, but I guess weaponized amorphous. Sounds like a horrible band name, but here we are.
But now they've got 70-odd MPs. Do they need to flesh out some more distinctive policies?
I think they do. And also, that they need to pick. So I'm going to be entirely honest and say that I've not really made the time yet to really go through all the new kind of Lib Dem MPs, but they're probably going to need some direction. And also, I think and hopefully they have a clear sense now, will soon know like who the big hitters are. Because for quite a long time, there were so few Lib Dem MPs that you didn't really have to have a party structure because there was no one there. Whereas now, actually, I think over the next kind of parliament, surely their mission should be, okay, let's say there's like 10 people there who are amazing and who probably never going to be in government, but could make the way party leaders, etc., really prominent figures. Others were kind of just going to hide them in the corner. And I feel, again, the Lib Dems have a great tradition of having insane MPs. And I can't wait to find out which ones they are this time round.
Who's the Lembit?
Yeah, no, that is the name. I feel like Nemo didn't want to say because it feels like losing a bet to just think about Lembit Opaque. It's just each time it's like, oh. So I think that they definitely need a better kind of like more coherent, I suppose, policy platform, but also try to figure out really who their people are.
Yeah. How much do they really want to oppose Labour? Because many of their voters would have been happy to see a Labour government and they were voting tactically to get the Tories out. Is there really, apart from saying let's spend more on the NHS, how much do they want to take on the Labour worldview?
I think I'm going to give a cowardly answer and say I think it's going to entirely depend on the issue of the day. So I don't think that that they're never going to oppose the Labour Party wholesale in the way that the Conservatives would, for example. But there's stuff on which the Lib Dems, for example, are quite a bit more libertarian and less sort of like big state. So you can imagine them opposing, even at Keir Starmer were to bring back the idea of like ID cards, for example, or stuff like that.
Or the smoking ban, though I didn't hear much from them on that.
No, that's true. But also at the same time, I think, the Tories are kind of nowhere to be seen at the moment. So it's also, I think it's still safe for the Lib Dems to attack Labour because it's not a situation where it really felt that the Tories could feasibly come back in government next parliament anyway. So it's a bit like, actually fine, that's probably a free-for-all at the moment for the government.
You do always feel it always reminds me of that Blackadder sketch with the standing at the back looking stupid, saying stupid things party. And he says, well, why did you throw that in about asparagus? He goes, oh, we just put that in for a laugh. And there is an element to which the Lib Dems could chuck something in for a laugh because they have got some policies like free school meals for pretty much everyone, which seems to the left of Labour, very good idea. But if you were to ask pretty much anyone on the street what's the Lib Dems' main policy, it would probably be they all sit around and work out what stunt Ed can do next.
Let's talk about Tory conference, Matt. Rishi
Yes.
Sunak, I know. Rishi Sunak is going, but he isn't giving a speech. He's going to keep quite a low profile, apparently.
Is he sitting in a sort of box above everyone else, like the Phantom of the Opera or something? just
I
watching?
cannot comment on Tory conference arrangements, sadly. The four remaining candidates will all get the chance to address conference, but then the contest drags on for another month after that. Two more of them get kicked out the week after conference.
I love that. I love the way that they've organised it so that they get to do speeches in front of conference and also interviews and Q&As and all this. So it's basically a popularity contest for the conference. But then the MPs vote on who goes through to be the next, to be the final two, as voted for by the members. So you could have a situation, and let's be honest, based on what's happened in Tory politics, it's likely to happen, that someone will come out and be really stridently very right, and the membership love them, but the MPs aren't that keen, so they don't put them into the final two. So they basically said, look at this person, this one's great, but you can't vote for them. And I feel like that feels like that's going to happen.
Certainly, that could be the way that Kebby Badenoch's hopes are dashed.
Exactly. And then you end up with the absolutely insane situation where you've got this very popular with the membership leadership candidate who wasn't allowed. So there's that kind of, again, it's almost like the stab in the back thing that they start off with. And then whoever becomes the leader is immediately hobbled by the fact that they've got this person behind them all the time in the backbenches going, well, I was actually more popular.
Yeah.
If only there was some precedent in recent Tory history for so the membership of the Parliament and the membership of the party disagreeing slightly and ending up with, 49 days of madness.
Indeed. This year, though, the plan is to give conference back to the members. That's the words they're using. There are 4 member debates. There were going to be 3, but apparently there was so much demand they had to do 4. They're going to be on the economy, immigration and borders, house building and preserving green spaces, because you can't obviously have one without the other. And this one surprised me, protecting free speech. Why is that such a pressing issue right now in Britain?
Well, because Britain's right are very influenced by America's right. And we've got, Musk and the Fox News and Republicans are all going on about freedom of speech all the time now. It's become a kind of right-wing talking point, weirdly. This idea that the left are suppressing free speech, that no one can say anything anymore. And it kind of slightly is to do with the riots and to do with the fact that there's this idea of 2-tier policing and all that kind of stuff. But it does feel to me more like a reform agenda, really.
Indeed. And it's GB News that's chairing the debates as well.
And exactly, yeah. There are people.
Well, then it'd be very even-handed at least.
Yeah. After they had that town hall event with Rishi Sunak and then didn't do any with any of the other leaders and then got Ofcom went, that's not very good. It's essentially that's what it is. I think it's them trying to sort of take on the mantle of the reform agenda. But as always is the case, the reform have always going to be able to be more strident and more right-wing and more extreme. And so I can't see that that's going to make any difference. But it'll give a lot of Tory members a chance to say how they're not allowed to say what they want to say in the public forum.
Well, they say it, yeah.
Whilst nobody understands the irony of what's happening.
Yeah. Speaking of reform, Marie, we shouldn't overlook one other conference this year, joining the fray, Reforms Conference. It's in Birmingham. It starts on Friday. What's the programme? What's the aim?
I have to say, I really resent the fact that you made me Google Reform Party Conference. That's just not something I
gave
ever
you
wanted
a link.
to do.
You didn't even need to Google.
Well, I'm a professional. I check my own sources, Ros.
Did it change your opinion?
No, so actually a selection of my favourite things about the party conference. The first one is that you can buy a platinum ticket to it if you want, which is £1,000 for 2 days there. And includes obviously 2-day access to the exhibition and stuff. But the thing that made me really laugh, so that what you get for your grand is reserved platinum parking. It is not fully clear to me what
Birmingham's
platinum
parking is
parking
terrible.
is.
That's kind of covetable, isn't it?
You also get a photograph of Nigel Farage and Saturday morning champagne breakfast with Reform leadership.
Wow.
Oh, good Lord.
Yeah, no, it's, it is the tight joke, but I think even for £1,000, I would not do any of these things.
Yeah.
I also enjoy, so there's an evening gala party, which if anyone listening is interested, you can actually buy a ticket, I think, just for the gala, not the conference. If you just want to party with reform people,
It's 25
you can
quid,
do
isn't
that.
it?
Bearing in
Bargain.
mind, they'll
It
have been
is.
at a champagne breakfast, so will
And
any of them be there?
I mean, my slight worrying thing was that the dress code is dress to impress, and I just do not want to know what reform members think that is.
Oh no, but it's going to be
Armbands.
the most ludicrous display of a Union Jack possible. Because there's always someone who comes in tails with Union Jack, and you just go, "Oh my lord, this is awful."
I mean, yeah, there'll be so many Union Jacks will be like, on the one hand, like bigger than you could ever think were possible, but also smaller. I think lots of pins. Like, I expect a lot of pins. So anyway, I feel like I looked at all that and got entirely sidetracked. But I enjoyed the way, so they've actually not really updated their manifesto since the election, but the way they phrased it was, imagine smart immigration, not mass immigration. Imagine no more small boats in the channel. Imagine no NHS waiting list. And it's like really like a racist fucking John Lennon thing. It's very weirdly formatted.
Now open your eyes and you're back in the room.
That's their entire policy agenda, isn't it? Imagine if things were like we want them to be. How are you going to achieve that? We don't need to do that. We need to imagine it. Meanwhile, Nigel Farage is in America speaking to a far-right organisation going, drill, baby, drill, which I don't know, but I don't feel there's an enormous oil field waiting just off Clacton for them to pick it up.
Let's talk about the Labour conference as well, which obviously we'll tackle in more detail when it happens on Oh God, What Now? Starmer is visiting Giorgia Meloni in Italy today. She is definitely on the populist right, though she isn't part of the pro-Putin bloc in the EU, at least. The PMs are going to talk about whether Britain can learn anything about how Italy has handled illegal migration, specifically by outsourcing the processing of migrants to Albania. This is going to be controversial, isn't it? And probably not just on the left of the party either.
It is, and I think the problem is one of the things Keir Starmer has been bad at in his government in general. They're not really doing pitch rolling on a lot of stuff, so I think they keep doing quite controversial things. Which, that's fine. That's part of being in government. I think you occasionally do stuff your party doesn't love, your voters don't love, etc. But you kind of have to get them used to the idea. You have to explain what you're doing, etc. And I feel like they're just not doing any of that at the moment. They're just not very good at kind of, I guess, I don't know if that's capital P politics or small p politics, but yeah, they'll just be like, oh, cool, so we're going to do this thing that you all hate. Bye. Which is, essentially that. But I think the problem as well is that the Labour Party is meant to be quite a broad church, and it's a coalition of, kind of centre-left people, left-wing people, quite left-wing people, etc. And it does feel like they're entirely ignoring, not just the left flank, but anything that's not sort of very Blairite, alt-right of the Labour Party. And I'm not convinced that can really last for a long time because, they're definitely, again, pleasing the old Blairites, but everyone else, I think, is probably going to just get crankier and crankier. And obviously, they do have a massive majority, but the Labour Party, hates nothing more than the Labour Party. So you do kind of have to, I think, sometimes acknowledge the fact that you have to deal with people and also with the kind of electorate you had, not the ones who wanted, etc.
It's like the winter fuel allowance being a very good sort of case in point where the communication has been awful. The winter fuel allowance should be means tested. We have the richest generation of pensioners, some of whom my mother gives hers to charity, which is well done, my mother. But at the same time, pushing that as a sort of, this is a sensible thing to do. What it seems to have come out as is Keir Starmer will steal your clothes and the only way you will get warm is if he sets your house on fire.
But also, same as Matt was pointing out earlier, I think their justification for everything is, well, we have to.
Yeah.
And it's but politics is fucking famously about storytelling and painting a picture and explaining why you're doing stuff. And they're just like, well, we had to. And that's that. And then that's, really bad management 101.
Well, let's see if that changes in the conference. Next up, time to choose our hero and villain of the week. Alistair, who is your hero of the week?
My hero is Zara Mohammadi, who is a former dentist in Afghanistan, and she was with 150 other women in Tirana at a conference last week talking about the Taliban, and I think it just comes home to roost just how badly the entire early 2000s invasion of Afghanistan was handled. Basically, the Taliban now have laws that mean that women can do nothing, unless, of course, they're daughters, in which case they get sent to Qatar to be educated. And basically, all those women at the conference in Tirana, I just think we have a power doesn't want women, and it just is insanity.
Yeah. Who's your villain?
My villain was the Daily Mail website for introducing a paywall, which I hadn't actually noticed. But unfortunately, when you're looking for a villain for this and it's not Donald Trump, you go, well, Daily Mail. And then I couldn't get into it. So I've gone with Laura Loomer because it seemed easier before the assassination attempt.
Laura Loomer. Yeah, just fill us in case anyone hasn't heard of her.
Right-wing nutcase, white nationalist, possibly sleeping with Trump, but you probably couldn't say that on the podcast, so I better remove that, even though I just heard the producer laughing in the soundbox.
Right. Matt.
Hello.
Who's your hero?
Well, my hero are a couple of writers, Aaron Reeves and Sam Friedman, who've written a new book called Born to Rule, The Making and Remaking of the British Elite, who said recently that Oxford and Cambridge should replace interviews with a lottery system for the highest performing students in the country, and also limit the number of pupils who get in from private school to 10% of the total, which represents, that's roughly how many pupils there are who go to private school in the country. And they say it would improve diversity. They've said it works in other countries, that they use a lottery system. It works very well. It would help reduce inequality, give people who never get the chance to go to places like Oxford or Cambridge the chance to get in. And not just, the headline is Oxford and Cambridge, but they're sort of saying elite universities in general. I think it's a great idea. But also, they're my heroes because I love whenever anyone does anything about Oxbridge, because it will immediately lead to hundreds of angry below-the-line comments from people saying, well, just ruin it. It'll ruin it. It'll ruin it if state school people go to Oxford and Cambridge. I mean, and it always gives them a chance to go, when I was at Oxford or Cambridge.
How is my son going to follow in my footsteps?
I mean, it's true. I mean, I know lots of people who send their children to private school and they have no money. So I don't know. You know,
Social engineering.
And as someone who went to state school and Cambridge, I'm all for that.
Have to agree there on all counts. Who's your villain?
A very obvious one, but I couldn't resist it this week. J.D. Vance.
I'm sure we've had that guy.
I'm sure, but we're going to he's going to keep being the villain until hopefully they lose, because he's literally admitted this week that he just made up those stories about Haitian immigrants eating cats and dogs, because his quote was, "I have to create stories so the American media pays attention to the suffering of the American people." Quite literally admitting making up fake news.
Well, in a way, that speaks to Marie's point earlier about politics being all about storytelling. And I guess that's what he's thinking in a strange disease kind of way.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Marie, who's your hero?
My hero is quite bleak. I wanted to mention her last time, but I feel like we didn't do hero and villains because we'd overrun. So I'm going to do this week, because sadly it's still ongoing and will keep going on for a long time. But it's Gisèle Pellicot, the French woman who was raped by her husband and who essentially drugged her night after night and just handed her to men who raped her. And just the fact that, she decided, which she didn't have to, but she decided that the entire trial should be entirely public. To essentially shame all those men, which I think was incredible. And every quote from her has basically made me cry over the past few weeks. But most recently, she said, because there were massive protests in France in kind of support of her on Saturday. She said, I was deeply touched by this movement. Thanks to you all, I have the strength to fight this to the end. I dedicate this fight to all people, women and men who are victims of sexual violence across the world. To all those victims, I say today, look around you, you're not alone. And it's just that the bravery, the strength, the going to be a moral strength of this woman, I just can't even begin to imagine. She's incredible.
Yeah. Yeah, that's very touching. Who's the villain?
Oh, so vibe shift, Lime bikes.
Oh, yeah, totally.
So, I mean, my hook for this is that Brent Council is considering seriously banning them from late October. I may move to Brent. But I think, people leave them absolutely everywhere, which is really bad for just people in general, but also people in wheelchairs, people with buggies, etc. Also, e-bike. So this is maybe a bit paternalistic of me. I do not think you should just be able to get an e-bike. Because the people who write them are idiots, drunks, or drunk idiots, or maybe that's a South London thing. I don't know, but I live in South London, and that's all I see. And the number of times, both as a pedestrian and a cyclist on a normal fucking bike, I've nearly been mowed down by an idiot on a Lime bike. So no, I'm happy. This is going to be my crusade for 2024, maybe 2025. I think first Brent Council, then the world. Just we have to ban Lime bikes.
Yeah, I do hate it as a pedestrian, and especially a pedestrian who until recently has had fairly small children, when they just go through red lights and it's like, get out of my way. Why? I have literally 10 seconds and you can't
Hmm.
even give me 10 seconds to cross the road. It drives me mad. This
Sounds
is
like your children have now taken up riding line bikes.
fortunately they haven't. Probably only a matter of time though, just to, defy me. This is a difficult one because we've got some excellent suggestions this week, especially in the hero category, I think. But I think I think Marie wins both this week
Ooh.
with Madame Pellicot
Mm.
and villain being line bikes. We're going to get so much hate mail now for cyclists, aren't we? Yeah.
But they're not cyclists. I think line bikes are slightly different. It's
No,
just,
no, they
it's
are
totally-
different. They are pedestrians who sometimes try to climb on a bike. Yeah. I was at the National Theatre on Saturday night watching a play about a war leader who can't win the support of ordinary people. It was very good, and I didn't realise that the roof of the building next door, the Royal Festival Hall, is leaking. It's too expensive to repair it properly, so it's been patched temporarily. It was the Labour PM, Clement Attlee, who laid the foundation stone of the Festival Hall in 1949. A lot of people working in the industry have been hoping that arts cuts might be reversed under the new government, but will they? Matt, the arts are something in which Britain is genuinely a world leader. Do politicians appreciate that enough?
I think they sometimes make noises as though they do. But I think also there is that problem that the arts are seen as sort of a bit fluffy, a bit silly, a bit not important when you come down to it. But they do represent a massive amount of national income. The number that is being used these days is £125 billion. Represents what the creative industries contribute to the national economy every year. And I always think that if you work in the arts, a lot of people who work in the arts are actually quite entrepreneurial as well. They're people who have an idea, they want to get things off the ground, they've got to market things themselves, they've got to get people interested in their work, they've got to go out there and make things happen. It's a very competitive world to be in. So although there is a sense in which, there's this kind of stereotype that arts people are also arty-farty just wandering around, but actually most people I know who work in the arts are quite driven. Doesn't mean that they're rich, but they've got something that they're trying to make happen, and that's that kind of energy I think is very, very powerful. And you're absolutely right, we punch massively above our weight as a country. TV, film, theatre, art generally, big hits lead to huge benefits. Obviously things like The Crown, Bridgerton, Downton Abbey lead to huge amounts of tourism. So it's a sort of no-brainer, I think.
Is comedy ever considered part of the arts, or does it exist somewhere off on the side?
I think comedy is seen as part of the arts when it gets serious. Whenever there's a moment where a comedy show does something a little bit serious, everyone goes, "Oh, it's so clever, it's so arty," And like we've already mentioned Blackadder, but the final scene of Blackadder goes forth. Everyone talks about Hannah Gadsby recently in The Net. Even The Bear won Best Comedy at the Emmys last year. Thankfully, not this year, because it's a shorter show. So they say it has to be a comedy, but it's not a comedy; it's a drama. But I think comedy is often overlooked by things like the Arts Council. It's seen as too commercial, ironically, so they don't want to invest in it. The fact that people want to pay money to see comedy makes it not sort of eligible for funding, which is
that's the big problem. So you've got two comics who work the comedy circuit a lot, and one area of the arts that gets absolutely no funding is us turning up to comedy clubs week in, week out. And if we were to go and sort of try and get a government grant to go and play the Comedy Store, then we'd get turned down and laughed out of the building, which might be better than the gig. But I think it's, it reminded me as Matt was talking about that thing about funding the arts, the problem you will get is the comments underneath the line going, I mean, they've paid thousands of pounds for a selection of bricks to stand up in the National. And so it's easy to get angry and dismiss art you don't like. And who is the arbiter of what gets what? But there is also an irony in speaking to two comedians who are both going, we don't get anything. So it's a fascinating one. But we are. I mean, this is one place where global Britain, that horrendously overused phrase, is genuinely the case. Richard Gadd. I mean, case in point, I was the runner-up to him in an award for Amused Moose 2015. He's just won with Baby Reindeer. So I don't know what his fascination with antlers is, but you've now got Britain going, look at what we've done.
Yeah.
And there is so much art that is not supported at ground level, but then there's a lot of things that aren't supported at ground level, and the argument can be quite difficult to make when you've gone and seen a genuinely appalling piece of theatre.
Is there a case for the state supporting comedy in some way? Clearly not picking comedians to back, because that would be strange and
Well,
bad.
people who've played both conferences would probably be.
But I mean, are there things more widely that they could do, like helping to foster venues, things like that, that they don't currently do?
I think protecting venues generally. I mean, the music industry, for instance, is in a terrible state. You can't make money from recordings in the way you used to. They have to make their money from live. I've got a small music venue near me, which is fantastic, the Corn Exchange in Hartford. But the vast majority of the bands they put on are cover bands, or because they, Oasis, or trying to be Guns N' Roses, because that's guaranteed for them to fill their hall, and it's an economic proposition. They need to protect live music. They need to sort out, I think, with streaming and everything else. I mean, we all now put our work online. I mean, Matt does astonishingly brilliant videos, which he puts out online free. If this was the 70s, he might be Morecambe and Wise, but he's not, because you have to put that stuff out there. There needs to be a conversation about changing media and how we support that, and of course changing and helping live venues.
Yeah. Marie, let's talk about festivals, because especially the more bookish ones, they depend on donors. And those have been drying up recently. One reason is the boycott by climate activists, Bailey Gifford, withdrawing from a lot of sponsorship, for example. But another, some people say, is the start of an exodus of wealthy people who'd rather live somewhere where taxes are lower and are worried especially about Labour taxing their wealth. Should we treat philanthropists better to try and help the arts?
Ugh. That's my straight from the heart answer. I don't really know. I'm not convinced that's the right question, because I think that, when you look at, for example, Ireland over the past decade and a half, they've been such a literary powerhouse, and obviously they have this massive tradition anyway, right? But even just over the past decade, they have had so many new exciting novelists, and also people from all backgrounds, which is quite rare, I think. And people in Britain keep being like, oh, well, those plucky Irish, how do they manage that? It's really not hard. They spend quite a lot of money on that stuff. There's, be that literature, culture in general. Ireland is very good at, the Irish state is very good at funding that. And if you look at a lot of these authors, they manage to get, a bursary here, a grant there, etc. And that's how they manage to get published. And they have that culture as well. So again, I resent the idea that in Britain you just have to rely on some bloke who quite likes books.
Who's now moved to the Cayman Islands because it's
and
not
who's
okay.
bored of books now.
But in Ireland, they don't. In Ireland, they don't tax artists. I mean, try getting that past the Daily Mail.
Oh God!
I mean, I'd be very happy not to be paying any tax whatsoever, but I can't see it standing up to the Express on a Saturday morning.
But something about the 80s comedy scene that sort of when that first exploded, the alternative comedy circuit, that they all talk about now, is that they all went on the dole. They were given money, and then ironically, it was Thatcher's enterprise scheme.
Yeah.
They got money to set up small businesses, which they all did. They all called themselves small businesses because they were. And then that gave them the time and money to just be able to. And also, living was a lot easier, a lot cheaper. You could get a flat in London for not, what it costs to basically buy a house somewhere else. And so there's all these other economic factors that are a big part of it. And if you just sort of say to people, just try harder, just put stuff on. It's great. You just put stuff online, and then people will come and see you. It's not quite as simple as that.
As Vix, I feel like they've done their bit about comedy, and I feel like as an author, can I just briefly do my whinge about the publishing industry, which is that also it is entirely impossible to be a writer who doesn't have magical family money now. I'm yet to receive, and again, and I've got a name and stuff. My books have done reasonably well. I'm yet to receive an advance that actually covers the amount of time I have to take to write a book. And I remember once having, in retrospect, a very funny chat with a publisher, and he wanted to commission me for a book. And I was like, the thing you have to know really straight away is that I don't have any, hidden piles of money. So if you want me to write a book, you do have to treat this as a job and pay me for, the amount of money it would take me to write the book. And he was like, I'm actually genuinely really happy to hear that, because I really, really want to, if possible, work as much as possible with people from, again, not mega posh backgrounds, etc. So, this actually makes me feel even more enthusiastic about working with you. I'm sure you're seeing the punchline coming here. They did not offer me enough money to write the book. And I was like, tremendous. Thank you so much.
But it's difficult more widely, because given how badly the money is needed for public services, is it reasonable to fund the arts from public taxes? Because it's nice to have a Royal Opera House, but given the choice, I'd rather have functioning criminal courts if it's an either or.
So I don't like opera. To quote the thick of it, is just subsidised foreign fucking vowels. So yeah, let's shut down the royal palace. But no, so more seriously, you see, I want to disagree, and I think it's a really hard thing because I'm not really sure my argument is, aside from no, like we have to fund the arts, but because there are so many things, like soft power, which we've been talking about, kind of like global stage, but also the number of lives changed, I think, by the arts, both by the people who practice them, the people who just have art in their lives, and be that anything from painting to comedy to books to everything. Just we kind of might as well be dead, I think, if we don't have the arts. But also, but also it sucks obviously that the courts don't work. But I'm not. I really do not want it to ever be seen as an either or, I guess.
Set up a court in the English National Opera House.
Just film the courts.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. I mean, that sadly, that's not allowed. As I remember when I was working in this area as a journalist. But it would be fascinating. And to be honest, it would probably raise quite a lot of money.
Mm-hmm.
But there was it's almost a cliche to say now, but during the first lockdowns in COVID, what did everyone do? Everyone watched TV and everyone listened to the radio or listened to podcasts or whatever it was. That's the arts is what gives people a reason to go on living, not just to. It's about not just surviving. And I think there's that danger, isn't it, that you end up with this sort of very utilitarian. And that's my worry with Starmer, is that there's that danger that it becomes so about, well, we can only afford to do this or that, and that's a bit fluffy, so we'll get rid of that. And then
there's a £22 billion hole in the National Opera's budget. But there's the thing, isn't it? So much of the, for want of a better phrase, high art, opera, orchestras, etc., are a huge financial proposition in a way. And then it comes back to what we do for a living, which is basically one bloke in a car driving around the country, and it's more financially, that's why we don't get any funding. But really trying to work out how to, feed and clothe the entire cast of The Marriage of Figaro and make it pay is just not going to happen. And as you say, maybe set The Marriage of Figaro in a court.
Alistair, is the arts industry more interested in Labour than Labour is in them?
Oh, that's a very tricky one. I think what Matt just said is kind of apposite in that I don't think we're quite in the Blairite inviting Noel Gallagher into. I mean, to be honest, it's a bit weird. Oasis reforming in a Labour government. I'm half expecting my hair to grow back, to be honest. But I think there is always a natural inclination of the artistic community to veer, for want of a better word, to the left. And there is an element. I mean, I think Starmer is canny. I think he learns on the job. Does he care a great deal about the arts at the moment? He will, of course, pay lip service to it. We've just had success at the Emmys. We're very good at it. But I think the arts community, certainly within the comedy world, were mostly very relieved to see the end of the Conservative Party, as I think the whole country was. Whether that will make any difference to them is perhaps more of a moot point.
Matt, Lisa Nandy has been appointed Culture Secretary and she wasn't expected to get the job. What signals has she sent so far?
I think I would say not many signals. I mean, I've looked. I may have missed something, but I've looked fairly hard for what she said, and she's tweeted a bit about going to events, and she's gone to lots of sports events. She's talked about the Olympics, the Paralympics, obviously, Team GB. The first thing she said was the era of culture wars was over, which did slightly make me think she'd misread her brief, because that's not what culture wars are. It's not about who likes what play or something, There was a big summit. There was a sort of culture and sports summit at the end of July in Manchester, where they brought together lots of people, lots of stakeholders, and talked about culture and how important it was, and talked about how they're going to instigate new curriculum review, which is going to put creativity and sports back into children's lives, emphasising how the economy of the sort of cultural sector is really important as part of growth. How the sport and arts can bring people together, all these sort of grand words about putting rocket boosters under the arts, taking the brakes off the economy. And then like a week later, the riots started. And I think that sort of slightly overshadowed all of that. And people didn't really kind of hear it, essentially.
Although a rocket up the arts is quite a good slogan.
Absolutely, absolutely. And she went to the Edinburgh Fringe, it turns out, and talked about how important that Edinburgh Fringe is and how important it is to foster the talent of people. But again, not many details really. Nice words, and she's clearly got the right idea, as it were. And the one big idea Labour seem to have for her department is the football regulator, which UEFA have just come out and said, if you do that, we're going to kick you out of all football competitions. So that's, I feel like she's got quite big problems from the sports side of things to think about.
It's on a simple level. You could do something like playing fields at schools. Which have just deteriorated beyond all imagination, and that's not highfalutin culture. It's not is this Japanese not theatre, or whatever. This is just kids playing sport, and that's what we actually could probably do with them. About that's not exactly going to be controversial, is it?
No, but the Labour manifesto said that arts will no longer be the preserve of the privileged few.
Well, they have to say that, don't
they? They do, but they said it, so we might as well interrogate it. That is a different ambition from, say, boosting the number of films made in Britain, which is a very commercial proposition, brings in taxes by itself, and it's not going to be achieved through tax breaks for philanthropists and for creators. How could the government try to make the arts less exclusive?
I think. Sorry,
they could do something about the cost of living, which means that unless you have got quite a lot of money, you are unable to. I mean, as you start as a comedian, as Matt and I both know, you drive around the country for no money, gaining experience. You can't do that if you need to live. You might, you work 2 jobs, you work hard, as Matt said earlier. There's an entrepreneurial spirit. But as Marie was saying about being an author, you can't just suddenly start writing. The whole thing it's based on privilege, and the cost of living is through the roof. And that is a societal problem that means that people haven't really got time to concentrate on their novel or their 20 minutes comedy set. So that, societal change probably comes before artistic well-being.
I was going to say something very similar. I think that's basically true. Just improve the economy generally, and people will want to go out and do things and see things and create things. My worry is that when they talk about sort of access and inclusivity, that you end up with just sort of slightly bland events where there's lots of sort of free stuff happening, sort of free festivals of arts, but nothing really interesting gets made because it's sort of all slightly lowest common denominator, and it's sort of trying to drag people in to go and have a look at a thing in a tent. There's a slight sort of Millennium Dome vibe to that, potentially, of just like putting lots of things together and no one's got any sort of artistic view on it. So I think just give people the opportunities to make things and go to things, and they will do it.
We've reached the end of the show, so it's time for Escape Routes. What cultural things, British or otherwise, have we been doing this week? Marie?
A person I was close to died last week, and my brain's just been broken by grief the entire time. But I will say the one very small silver lining is that I discovered the Hunger Games books are very good for when your brain has just stopped functioning entirely. I've been reading about 200 pages a day. So I've done all the trilogy, and I'm now doing the prequel. Not sure what's going to. I felt like I really have to have run out of grief by the time I finish that one book, because that's all there is. But I will say, for whatever reason you can't focus on anything serious, but you really want to take your mind off things, then surprisingly well written and actually quite interesting. So the Hunger Games.
That's a good recommendation. Matt?
I really enjoyed a documentary on Sky this week, which is called Wise Guy, David Chase and The Sopranos. And it's, I think it's the 25th anniversary, maybe, of The Sopranos' first series. And it's very good documentary. It's a 2-parter, lots of very interesting interviews with the cast and crew. And my favourite thing is in the first episode, there's a lot of stuff about how they cast it, and there's lots of casting tapes, which is, I just always find that fascinating because I do lots of casting tapes as an actor. And so it's always interesting watching other people doing it and seeing all these people who didn't get the role and why didn't they get the role? And then you see the person who got it and you go, oh, that I can see what it was maybe. Or sometimes you go, oh, I can't see why they got that. That's very interesting. And it did make me want to watch The Sopranos again. So maybe that will be my next thing.
Well, I've been watching Colin from Accounts on BBC iPlayer, as well as going to the National Theatre. Coriolanus is very good, by the way, if you get a chance to go. But it's very, very good, Colin from Accounts. And the second series, I think, is even better than the first, especially the episode on ethical porn, which is hilarious. It's very, very good. Alistair?
I can't beat ethical porn, to be honest. I've been consuming enormous amounts of unethical. No, I haven't. What I've been reading is it's fantastic. Is Anthony Selden's Truss at 10, and because I devoured the one on Johnson, which was like a kind of comedy thriller, absolute page turner in a way that you're going, it can't get any worse. Oh my God! And the challenge of writing a similarly sized tome about a 49-day premiership, and he's framed it in a different way, but it's the level of of research. It's sort of peerless, and yet it still reads like a thriller. And I'm a huge fan. He's definitely on my dream dinner party list, and I'm literally just racing through it because it's and I'm going to have to. If you told me 20 years ago that I was going to be demanding to read a book on Theresa May's premiership, but that's my next one. I think he's fantastic.
I don't know how he does it because he's also a private school headmaster and has a load of other gigs as well. But clearly, he's just a Renaissance man.
Arts funding, I think, probably.
And that's the end of the Tuesday edition of Oh God, What Now? Thank you, Marie.
Thank you.
Matt.
Thank you.
And our guest, Alistair Barrie.
Thank you very much.
Oh God, What Now? We'll be back on Thursday for our backers and Friday morning for everyone else. Speaking of our Patreon backers, there's shouts to some of the latest to sign up in a moment. You too could join their happy throng and help the podcast to keep thriving in our new political era. Just follow the link in the show notes. Thanks for listening and see you next time.